This is the newest episode of the RE/MAX Roatan Real Estate Roundup, sponsored by our partners at RE/MAX. And today I've got Mr. Marek Vanura with me. Morning, Marek.
Good morning.
I'm great. It's a beautiful day. So I'm your host, Russ Regentz, and today's topic is we're going to talk about building that dream home. As you know, in the first couple of episodes of our show, we've discussed about purchasing your home. What's that process like? What's the financing like? How do we do that? But one of the other options here is actually purchasing land and building your own home. Marek has been through this process several times with many of his different clients. And so we wanted to just have a quick conversation about that. So, Marek, let's just jump right in. When you see what type of people are building their own home versus actually purchasing, do you see any differences in your clients?
I don't know if there's a difference in that. It's just, sometimes the market has only that much to offer. And, especially the wives, usually they're the boss in that station of their life. So they don't like something. So then the other option is that the man has to decide, okay, let's build a house, because it's always nice to be buying someone else's house, but you buying someone else's dream. You can do a lot of renovation, but still it's not 100% yours. So a lot of the clients trying to pick the right spot. And then, sometimes it's easier to find a land with the great views, great location, and then just decide it. And then, believe me, it's not an easy process and not an easy decision to make to start building your own house. So I would say it can be anyone. I mean, it doesn't vary from the regular clients. It's just to make this decision, okay, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a great point. That was, and I like the way you described that. It's usually you're buying somebody else's house, buying somebody else's dream. So it's not truly yours. My wife and I went through that same process. The first purchase we made here on Roatan was a condo. So we had very little influence on the size of it, the layout, etc. But the second time we wanted to do it ourselves, and exactly for those reasons. So we bought our land. 5 years later, we ended up putting a house on it, and here we are. So for those folks that are interested in buying land and building their own, kind of walk us through that initial process. Is that, do they come to you first? I mean, can you guys recommend builders? Kind of walk me through how you work with your clients, please.
Yeah, it's always a good thing with us, and especially RE/MAX. We have such a wide base of clients, and that they went through the process. Plus, I've been on the island over 12 years. I've built a lot. I do a lot of supervision for my clients too, which is very, very important. Like, please, guys, be careful. Even though you choose the right builder, you need to have someone who's keeping an eye on your process on building your dream house. It's not like okay, here is what I want, and I see you in a year, you give me the keys and it's done. That's very, very wrong. So you need to be aware of who you're working with and who you trust. But let's come to the first point. What's the most important is to find the right location, right? That's always very, very difficult, and it's most important, because if you're buying a house, the house is already set the some way, and then the sun comes out there, the sunset is there, the wind blows from here to there. It was already decided for you. But when you're buying just a lot, just picking the right position of the house, that's usually the hardest. So I always tell my clients, okay, be there in the morning, be there in the noon, be there in the afternoon, be there when it's raining, be there when it's really windy. So you know how to adjust the house, which views you prefer, where you want the wind to be blowing. Do you prefer your main terrace to be on wind or behind? So there's a lot of things that people don't understand sometimes. And when you start explaining, they're like, oh, it's more complicated than we thought, right? And that's just the beginnings. You finally find the right property, and then you kind of know it, and then you feel like, okay, I'm ready to make the call. Okay, how are we gonna do the house? So then it comes the second one, the blueprints. What do we want? Do we want concrete? Do we want wooden? You'll be surprised. A lot of the clients, they don't have that prepared. So they okay, we're gonna buy a property and we're gonna build. Like, there is few like you, for example, that we buy this property and then we will see, we come back in a few years and then we're gonna build. which is even harder because now suddenly that property looks way different from the 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I have clients 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Not there's lately, luckily, there is a lot of clients that buy the property and they make the decision straight away. Okay, let's build something, either for themselves or we can use it for rental or just to flip the property. But again, it's kind of tricky. I was trying to explain. Just be careful when you're building something for renting or to flip the property. Don't put too much of your ideas into it. Because again, if you do that, then it's your home, your dream. And that's why sometimes people decide to buy a land and then build because they want their dream. All right. So there's a lot of things that you have to think about and make sure you're prepared and you know what you're doing. Once you have all that set up, okay, then you come with the architect. Again, we have plenty of options. Sometimes they ask me, can we use the architect from US, Canada, Europe, wherever? Say, sure, you can, but then let me run it through the architect here. Because again, the plans has to be stamped by the architect that has a Honduran stamp. It's part of the Honduran Association. And on the other side, we have to make sure that we can build such a house here on the Roatan with our resources, with our materials, with the equipment that we are using. Fortunately, we still don't have all the equipment and all the resources that the people have in US, Canada, or in Europe. So that makes it the building difficult too. So sure. It's a good thing to have someone like me, for example, that will walk you through the process. So then you understand. Absolutely. So once you finally have the plans.
Good point. I mean,
yeah. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I think you bring up a good point because you have to have that discussion about economics. What is your budget as you're having those conversations? Is it going to be concrete? Is it wood? And then here, it's so mountainous. So you want to make sure that the footprint that you really like is available to be built on potentially a pretty significant grade, a pretty significant hill. Can it be done? I think that's a very important concept. And I think that's a really good reason to make sure that you're working with folks like yourself at RE/MAX who have Honduran engineers and Honduran architects here that know how to build on some of these, significant hills, which is obviously very important.
Correct. And it's not only Russ, unfortunately, we do have sometimes earthquakes. So you need to make sure the footings and everything is done the right way so it can take that little shake that we have. Luckily, we don't have anything major here, but sometimes you can feel a little vibration now and then. So you have to be prepared for that too. And then if you have an architect from, let's say, Europe, he never had a problem with earthquakes, right? So then he doesn't know what we're talking about.
Right. Well, that's a good point. And I always laugh. I mean, being from Texas, we never really had a lot of we had hurricanes. We didn't really have a lot of earthquakes. And I remember the very first one that we had here, it felt like my dog was actually jumping on the bed, was kind of shaking the first time. But you bring up a good point, and that's why it's really important to work with local professionals like yourself who can help oversee that. Let me ask you a question. One of the things that I think, excuse me, and I think this is an important factor. One of the things that we were doing, my wife and I, we built our home here during COVID. So it was a little bit of a different than most people are going through, a little bit of a different experience. One things we had to do is we hired the right builder. We did all the due diligence up front, but then my wife and I were back and forth, one of us about every 3 weeks to a month. So we were constantly here, always, making our presence felt. That's something people, I think, forget to budget in is airfare. Or if you're not living here, especially, you got to make sure you put that in your budget. So that one of those things what other things in that budget do you always like to add in for your clients to make sure that they are getting a good product, but in the same breath thinking, because there can be some more expense to actually having to build your house?
Yeah. Well, you have another option. So you choose some supervisor, A lot of people go, no, but the builder is sending me pictures and videos. It's like, okay, the builder is the builder. The builder won't show you where is he cutting corners. The builder won't tell you, oh, this is the cheap option of what I can actually get you, So it's always important. If you're not able and you don't count of that, what you did, that was actually great and very smart. then hire someone. And I tell you, it's gonna save you loads of money. First, people are like, so why should I be paying for someone to supervise the construction? I can do it over the phone and stuff. Well, believe me, maybe you can, but it won't be the same. And having someone you can trust and that actually tells you the real truth, how is it really going, and that's priceless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that, and you bring up a really good point, and that's an open line of communication with your builder, with your supervisor. I've seen some people they just get irritated, and all of a sudden they stop talking to their builder, and I just don't understand that. I mean, you're building a $400,000-$600,000 investment house, and you're not talking to your builder every day, 4, 5, 6 times a day. I mean, so it is. You bring up a good point. All right, so let's go to the next phase. Builders. Some are great, some are bad. Obviously, we're all really happy when our house is done perfectly. I mean, there is no perfect house, obviously, but for us, if there is, everything's done perfectly, that's an easy thing. So say you have a builder and you're just not communicating, it's not working, you're getting into the process. Is it possible to fire builders? Kind of walk me through what happens if there is a bit of an issue with the builder.
Well, first of all, it's always good by picking the right builder so you avoid this situation, right? So I always tell my clients, okay, we can walk you through some builders that we already worked with in the past. We can show you the houses they built. We can ask the clients, how was the process? If he said, I built it in a year, did he really do it in that 1 year, or it was longer? So, these little details that actually do matter. And then once you pick the right one, you should be pretty much okay, unless there is some unexpected situation. Like anything can happen. He might die, or I don't know, something might happen.
Sure.
I had a really difficult situation in one of the big builds on Coral View, that our builder just stopped talking to us for a few months. Then he disappeared and we didn't know. And that was at the point that we made a payment, nothing was happening. And now it's very hard to make the decision, okay, now we're going to execute and we take that loss, or are we going to wait more? How much longer can we wait? Because time is money too.
Sure, absolutely.
It's very hard, but you do have option to fire the builder. Well, that's why you make a nice contract, good contract that you let the lawyer to check it too. And you have that option if something is not going the way that you guys agreed on, to have an option, okay, this is where we're going to draw a line, and from now on, we are done, and I'm going to look for someone else. It is very hard, and I hope no one has to go through that, because, it's bring a new builder to someone else build. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. You don't know, because you have different electricians, you have different plumbers, different guys working with the concrete. You don't know what he did, where he put what. Usually, if you do decide to change the builder, believe me, the old builder won't tell the new builder nothing. They won't share the information. You have your plans, but there's no guarantee that he did everything according to the plans. That brings me back to the point, you need to have a supervisor that makes sure that everything is done by the plans.
Well, you bring up a great point. And what I'm hearing you describe to me is an old saying in Texas: measure twice, cut once. Do your due diligence up front. And if it takes you a few extra months to make the decision on the builder, take that time up front. Kick the tires, go see his current or her current work, make sure that you're actually talking to people. Because I agree with you. The last thing I think you would want to do is take over a build. I think that would be just an awful process, because like you said, the former builder is not going to be cooperative with the new builder. That's just the way it is. They just aren't going to do that. So it's better to avoid problems up front than, correct them on the backside.
Yeah, it brings me to one more thing that the client should be aware of. Because of the market is growing, we have more and more construction. So there's this new builders, right? There's builders coming from the mainland. There are guys decide, okay, I'm going to open my construction company because I work for someone. Now I feel I can do it. And the budgeting is very important to go over piece by piece, because usually when you can get into a situation, and it happened here at Roatan many times, that you make the first payment, the guy start working and then suddenly disappear, because he knew he's not able to build a house. Always telling my clients, okay, listen, this is more or less the price per square foot or something. Be aware if someone is offering you something very cheap, because that stinks. There might be a problem. And I already know when they come to me, because I'm built, I'm a supervisor. When they tell me, oh, but this guy said he can build it for me for 100,000 less. It's like, well, be careful, because he might not finish the house, or he will disappear halfway through. It happened on Roatan, unfortunately. We have this situation. It's very hard to deal with them. But I feel like it's the fault sometimes of the client not listening enough to what we have to offer him, all the information that we have to give him.
Well, and you bring up a good point, is I think that, again, that's really a critical one. There's always going to be a range, right? A band. There's going to be a medium point. If you're too high, that's a problem. If you're too low, it's a problem, because that plus or minus on a square footage basis, pretty much what that's going to expense is going to be. And if it's the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, and you're going to deal with problems on the backside. I thought it interesting is one of the things that our builder, he did two things for us that were just absolutely brilliant. And he was really thinking ahead. As I referenced, we built our house during COVID. So it was a little bit of a different experience. But one of the things I thought was brilliant that he did, we built primarily a wood house, island style wood house. He bought all of the wood ahead of the whole country getting shut down. And I thought that was a brilliant move. He called.
You saved a lot of money there.
Yes, he did. A ton. He was thinking ahead, and he called me and he said, hey, I realized that we're X amount of dollars. We had progress payments and a schedule built. He goes, I realize we're going to push it, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and buy all the wood, because I have a bad feeling that we're going to get shut down as a country. So he went ahead, did it, stored it, and it was nice because that helped acclimate it to the client or to the climate. And that was a brilliant move on his behalf. I mean, I was just stunned when he called me, and I said, yeah, let's do that. That's a great idea. So
you were very lucky. You were very lucky. You had a really good builder just from listening what you're saying.
Yeah. Well,
it's good sometimes, but it can be tricky, because sometimes purchasing more material in advance and them having more construction, suddenly the material gets moving from side to side. So again, you get to the point, you have to have someone you trust or be there so you can avoid these situations.
And that's exactly what we did. We were very fortunate, is that my wife and I, being from Houston at the time, living there, it was a quick flight back and forth, plenty of opportunities once the country opened up, obviously. And we had a couple friends here that, we trusted, that we knew they built their own homes, and they would just stop by and walk by as they're walking their dogs every morning and just kind of make sure they were looking. And, and it cost us a little bit, it cost us a little bit in airfare, cost us in some dinners. We had some nice dinners and bottles of wine to take care of people who were helping us, but it was well worth the investment. And I think that's one thing that I always tell people is, especially if you're going to build, make sure you have a little bit extra money socked away for those ancillary personal expenses. If it's airfare or taking somebody to dinner that's overlooking your property, don't try to do it on the cheap. You're building a $500,000 house or whatever it is. $3,000 for airfare is not going to kill you. So be cautious of that, right?
Yeah, and also as you're talking about the budgeting, be always prepared. It takes, and especially these years, if a house takes a year or maybe a little bit over a year, if it's a bigger home, pricing goes up. So you have to have a little percentage and count on, okay, it might go a little bit over, it might go a little bit more. Also be prepared that you might have to travel a little bit more. Have these things, count on these things and be prepared. Don't drain yourself completely, because that might not end up good for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And needless to say, during our build, my wife and I both were volunteer. I'll volunteer to go, honey. I'll go check on the house. You don't have to do it. I'll go do it.
I don't blame you.
I don't either. She won that most of the time, though. But hey, Marek, thanks for taking the time this morning. It's been a great conversation. For those of you all who are watching Blue Wave Radio's Roatan Real Estate Roundup, sponsored by our partners over at RE/MAX, one of the reasons, and you've heard me say this in the last couple episodes, and I will continue, one of the reasons that you want to work with a RE/MAX, a reputable firm that has international 140,000 agents across the globe, that has experience, is exactly what Marek is talking about. So when you meet and have that discovery meeting, they're going to help you figure out what it is. But you know what? Inside of their agency, or pardon me, of their brokerage, they have a lot of different people with a lot of different talents. There's some really good people on this island, especially inside of RE/MAX, that can help walk you through the process of not only purchasing your home, but as we talked about today, building that home, who can act as that oversight. And, that's one of the reasons we wanted to partner with you guys is just the breadth of information and the breadth of knowledge and successes that you all have. So, Marek, thanks again for taking that time with us.
I thank you too. And again, guys, please don't be shy. Ask questions. That's why we're here for you. And we have the team around us that can help you make your process way easier. Thank you, Russ.
Just love it. Thanks again. This has been Russ Regentz and my partner, Marek Vanura at RE/MAX. And I'm Russ Regentz with Blue Wave Radio. We'll see y'all next time.
Okay, bye.